Okay, so let's practice drawing a Cartesian plane so that we can plot points. And you might be thinking, hang on, what is a Cartesian plane? A Cartesian plane is where you've got an x-axis, a y-axis, numbers on the x-axis, numbers on the y-axis, so that you can draw points and pinpoint exactly where points are. Named after Rene Descartes. Funny story, the legend goes that he came up with this system of identifying where a point is because he was looking up, he must have been really bored. He was looking up at the ceiling, looking up at the ceiling tiles and looking at a fly crawling around the ceiling tiles from one to the other, this grid of ceiling tiles. And he thought, hey, that's a really neat way of identifying where something is. Give it a horizontal position, an X position, and a Y position, and bam, you can pinpoint exactly where you are. Like coordinates for a map, latitude and longitude. So that's thanks to Rene Descartes, which is why it is called a Cartesian plane. All right. Anyway, let's actually get into what we're doing, which is to draw a Cartesian plane and to plot points. It says to plot the points on a Cartesian plane. Well, if we're going to plot points, we'll have to draw a Cartesian plane. So let's do that first. I note that all of these points, the numbers are between -5 and +5. There are no big numbers. So I'm going to make my Cartesian plane go from -5 to +5. And I've got some tips here to help you out. Step number 1, draw an x-axis and a y-axis. With ruler, please, with ruler. So we'll draw an x-axis like this, horizontal line, with an arrow showing that the positive numbers go that way, and a y-axis. Then I'm going to add my tick marks. So my tick marks are these little things. These are called tick marks. And then I'm going to add some numbers. So this is a number line. So there's 0. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's 0. Now I can go back into the negatives. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. There's a good chance you might be able to hear my dogs in the background. But we will march on. Okay, so I've got my numbers. Let's add an X and a Y label for the X-axis. This one's the X-axis, and that one is the Y-axis. And then add the origin circle. This point here, the middle, is the origin, where the X is 0 and Y is 0. And that is how you draw a beautiful Cartesian plane. You'll be doing that quite a lot in this topic. You'll get pretty quick at it by the end of this topic. So let's plot these points. Point number 1, this point is D. It's called D. The X coordinate is 4 and the Y coordinate is 1. So I go on my X coordinate is 4 and my Y coordinate is 1. So horizontally I go right 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then vertically I go up 1 unit, 4, 1. For point E, I'm at -1 for X and 2 for Y. So this first part is how far left or right I go. I'm going to go -1 down this way and then 2 for Y. So up 2, 1, 2. Point E. And notice that I can check. The X coordinate of E is -1 and the Y coordinate of E is 2. X, Y. Point F has an X coordinate of 0. So I don't move left or right. X coordinate of 0 is right here. And a Y coordinate of 5. So I'm going to go up 5. Notice that the Y coordinate is how far up or down you go. And lastly, I've got point G. The X coordinate is -3. The X coordinate is how far left or right. So I'm going to go left 3. 1, 2, 3. And the Y coordinate, how far up or down, is 0. So I'm not going to go up or down at all. Plonk. There is point G. And just to check, the X coordinate, is -3. And the Y coordinate, the point on the Y-axis, is 0. Great, we've just plotted these points. Now we want to state the quadrant for points D and E. If you're plotting on a Cartesian plane, you've got positive x values, negative x values, and positive y values, negative y values. Notice that it divides all of the points in the universe into 4 sections, 4 quadrants. The naming that mathematicians use is they start here with quadrant number 1, the first quadrant, and we go anti-clockwise. So we go from here, quadrant number 2, quadrant number 3, quadrant number 4. So we go anti-clockwise, opposite the direction of a clock. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we wanted to state where point D is, notice that D is in the top right quadrant. It's in this section here. So point D is in the first quadrant. Point E is over here. Notice it's in the top left section. So this section here, point E is in the second quadrant. We can also talk about whether points lie on the x-axis or on the y-axis or neither, or both. Which point lies on the x-axis? There is one point here that lies on the x-axis. To answer that question, it will be helpful to highlight the x-axis. This is the x-axis. There we go. There we go. So that's the x-axis. Which point lies on the x-axis? Point G. G lies on the x-axis. And we can do the same for the y-axis as well. Which point lies on the y-axis? This is the y-axis. Oh dear. Oh, you can see why I tell you to use a ruler. Very, very wonky without a ruler. So the y-axis is this vertical axis here. Which point lies on the y-axis? As you can see, it is F. F lies on the y-axis. Boom. So what have we done? We've learned how to draw a Cartesian plane. We've learned that we use a ruler, tick marks, numbers, X and Y label, the origin circle. We've learned what a quadrant is. A quadrant is a quarter of the Cartesian plane. And we've learned how to identify whether a point is on the x-axis and whether it is on the y-axis. Brilliant! So much. We smashed through that. Good luck with the questions. Let me know if you need a hand. Bye, everyone.